is a difficult story for me to tell, genuinely. It took me a year to tell even my closest friends about it, and even then I was drunk and I didn't mean to do it. Okay, so like much else in my adult life, it started with a drink. My friend John Osborne was round and we were talking about Britpop and drinking wine. More specifically, we were talking about how Britpop is better than everything, better than films or roads or cars or friends or wives. Nothing can't be improved by a cheeky hand clap, a chorus of la la la's and a Cod Mancunian accent for me. And we were sort of listening to music, and then John uttered the immortal words that would end 6 months later. To launch a story that would end 6 months later with me on stage being showered in bottles filled with other people's piss. John said to me, and I can't really do a John Osborne accent, but he is from the north of England, so I'm just going to do a generic northern accent. Oh, aye, look. Have you heard of Art Brut? It doesn't really sound like that, but it's northern. I hadn't. What was Art Brut? Well, Art Brut, as it turned out, were a band that sounded to me a bit like Blur, but the lead singer sort of spoke, basically. And we found their MySpace page, and John played me some music. And does anyone know Art Brut? Yeah, okay. So they got this song. The first song we're going to release. It goes like this. It goes, "Formed a band, we formed a band. Look at us, we formed a band. Honey Pie." I don't know when it started. Stop buying your albums from the supermarket. They only sell records that have charted. And Art Brut, well, we've only just started. And yes, this is my singing voice. It's not irony, it's not rock and roll, I'm just talking to the kids. I don't do it justice, but that's pretty much what it sounded like. John says to me, "Oh, he calls himself Eddie Argos." And I was in love. I got excited about music for the first time since I've been 15. Eddie Argos and Art Brut's sort of combination of sort of acute, hyper self-aware social observation mixed with cheeky, jappy punk rock kind of excited in me something that hasn't been excited the first time I listened to all that mid-90s stuff, what I still like. And he had this sort of cool about him. He was really smart, but he had the enthusiasm of a little kid, like Mick Jagger with blackcurrant and lolly all down his t-shirt. And I just was smitten by it. I got excited by music again. I almost bought The Enemy. But the difference between my teenage obsession with music and my current one with Art Brut was that back then I was happy to be a fan. These days I'm grown up with dignity. I have a modestly unsuccessful career in the arts. I was happy to be Eddie Argos' fan, but I thought it only fair game that he should be a Luke Wright fan as well. That's only fair. I mean, it'd be great because I could open for Art Brut on tour, I could do some poems, it could go down brilliantly, we could go backstage, we could drink rum, we could talk about what social references aren't really pulling their weight anymore, and then on Tuesday nights we could play Monopoly with Luke Haynes and Nigel Blackwell. And I was thinking about that when John started reading out their gig list, and they were doing a gig in, not very many gigs that year, but they were doing a gig, Lounge on the Farm, the 11th of July, and we were like, we should go to this gig, that'd be fantastic. So we started planning, and then I had a better idea, which I regret to this day. I said, well, look, how about I just try and get on the bill and we can go to the gig for free, and that'd be really cool, and we could hang out with them and play Monopoly. John didn't really get the Monopoly thing, but I mean, he thought it was a good idea. So I sent a message off to Lounge on the Farm, which is a boutique little music festival down in Kent, and about 2 weeks later I got a reply back from Lounge on the Farm. So. It said, "Dear Luke, just getting together the budget for a cabaret tent right now, but certainly possible. We'll be in touch in a couple of weeks." So that was kind of quite positive. About 2 weeks later, I got another message from her, this is from Victoria. She said, "No, it's just blank." Spoil that now. So Victoria said, she said, "Do you do any sort of comparing?" And I got back to say, yes, I do some comparing, but bear in mind, I do really want to see the band Art Brut. And I have to say that, although I tried to hide it, my original email to her was quite patronising. It was sort of like, "Hi, yeah, Luke Wright, kind of a comedian, poet guy. I mean, you're quite well known. Hey, so I see a festival, great stuff, good work there, guys. Thought I might sort of pop down. Hey, here's a crazy thought. How about I'm just blue skying here, but how about get a mic and do a couple of poems? That'd be pretty good, yeah." But anyway, she fell for it, and "Do you do any comparing?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And I said, "On this Art Brut." She said, "Don't be ridiculous," she said. "You'd be comparing on Art Brut," which is exactly what I wanted. Like it was exactly, I would play Monopoly, and it would be brilliant. And so we were very, very excited. And that was the last email I got from her was the 11th of June 2008. So it was like a month before we went down to this festival. And that month, I have to say, I was a little bit cocky. I was going around saying things like, oh, it's great, my life, actually, because, yeah, I just thought I liked this band, so I thought, I don't want to see the band, I'm just going to play with the band. I could play with the band, because that's what my life was all about. And I emailed Eddie Argos on MySpace, which is pitiful in itself. The story, and he wrote back, he said, cool, yeah. Look forward to hanging out with you there, fella. E-kiss. That was a little kiss there already, so already that Monopoly game was approaching. And so we went down, and it was a beautiful summer's day. We got onto my little Ford Escort at the time before I moved from Monday. I was still back in the old days. We were there, and the windows were down, and we were listening to Art Brut. And I remember seeing this thing on MTV once. It was footage of someone opening the gates to, I think it was like Earl's Court or something like that, and all these teenagers running for the crash barriers. And that image stayed in my mind, and it felt like that. There weren't many things that I do in my life that if I showed my 15-year-old self, he would be impressed. But I think that was one of those moments I thought, I would think I'm quite cool right now. So we went to Lounge of the Farm. Lounge of the Farm, as the name suggests, is a farm. But unlike Glastonbury, there are no rolling fields to get lost in. It's just a working farm, and as we sort of made our way in, there was loads of refugee cows and stuff, and the smell that my mother would describe as a lovely country smell. Anyone else would describe as pig shit. And we pitched our tent, and we drank a bottle of wine each. Now, I should point out I don't normally drink a bottle of wine before going to work, but a festival's different. You have to drink just the right amount, so you're with your crowd. You can't go in there, you need to feel what they're feeling. So I drank a bottle of wine, and it worked. I was fearless, but I was totally articulate. Everything was going good. So we walked down to the main stage, which was called the Cowshed, named with breathtaking literalness. And I went there to try and find someone. John went to the bar to get I'll get some beers in. And I went off to try and find some authority, and I found this big fat guy dressed head to toe in denim. He looked like a home counties John Candy. And I said, oh, mate, I'm just looking for someone who's in charge of the stage. And he went, oh, no point talking to me, mate. I'm just the compere. And I said, but I'm the compere, feeling faintly ridiculous, like Ben Stiller in a Ben Stiller movie. And he says, oh, no, I compare this stage every year. And I went, and he said, you have to ask Sean. So Sean, we set out to try and find Sean. Sean was to be found at a trail of ever increasingly more angry women in high-vis jackets, basically, each one more scary than the last. Eventually we found Sean, and I said, he said, you're starting at 8 o'clock. And I said, well, there's someone else there who thinks he's compere. And that's just Alex. I said, okay. What should I do about Alex? He went, just tell him that, just tell him to come talk to me. And it wasn't as easy as that, because Alex was genuinely a bit crestfallen, and he was like, but I've compared this stage every year since it started, is it? Man, boob jiggling slightly. I said, well, you have to go. And Sean said. I sort of wore the phrase Sean said, like a cashmere coat in a dodgy neighbourhood. Because nobody knew I was going to be there. No one knew that there should be a compere. I met a stage manager called Jamie. He was very nice, but again, I had to. What Sean said that I was to do some poems. I had to wangle a microphone. I had to wangle 15 to 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes in between bands, so I could do my poetry. Because you think you could just do it, but no, they have to turn the mics off to annoy you, and it's all just a bit complicated. But eventually, it got to the point where I was going. So I stepped on to introduce the first band. There was probably about sort of 500 people there. At that point, it was still light outside, and I started off with some fairly easy stuff I was doing. Slacking off Victoria Beckham, slacking off Central Trains, and easy, stupid things I don't do anymore. I'm better than that now. I was doing all that stuff because I thought they like me. It's less stupid. I'm just going to do my stupid. But it was going well. It was going actually really, really well, and I was getting good responses to the poems. I was getting laughs, and they was doing some good comparing bits, and I was just doing all the stupid sort of like, what's the art route? And all that sort of stuff. So I was getting, it's going well. And then these blokes, about 15, and they were sort of, they were wearing, I don't know if you know the kind of guys I mean, they wear Oakleys and they don't wear shirts. Have you seen them? Good guys, top blokes. And so they were sort of shouting, Dick, twat, Dick. I generally just ignore hecklers if I can, because you don't want to, but when it gets really loud you have to sort of address it, because it's your dignity. And so I said, oh, hello, you look very pleased with yourself, young man, what's your name? His answer's a gift. He went, Rupert! Now, people don't generally sympathise with blokes in Oakley's called Rupert. It's just not, and everyone laughed at him, and it was funny, and I kind of won that exchange, and I just carried on. But then he started up again in the next poem, and what I did next, I still think this is genius.